Well, hello there, everybody. How are you all doing on this here Friday afternoon, morning? Good. I think saw Jules in the chat room, so it's Saturday morning there. Love it. But welcome everybody. So good to see you all. Speaking favor over us. Nothing missing, nothing broken. So what's up? Trust your day is exceptional no matter where you might be. And as we go over here and we look on that, and then we look on that, and it seems to be just fine. So what's up? How are y'all doing? Robert V, what's up? Good to see you, brother. And Lost in Space, good to see you as well. Emperor X, Aaron, hello. Julie, good to see you. Deborah, much love to you, darling. Elderberry, Eric, well, what's up? John Price, good to see you. So, yeah, it's Friday. The world still seems to be hell bent on this catastrophe. That's why tomorrow, if you know someone who does podcast, or hey, just join in thought. Just think world peace, calm, common sense. There's a whole lot of other things we could add to that word peace, but boy, we need it. It sucks, just to be honest with you. The intelligence of how many millennia? I mean, depending on your point of view, but nevertheless, you would think a species would evolve further than to harm another, inflict pain upon another. Use our intelligence to make things that go boom, to harm a whole lot of others. I mean, that's just insanity. We could be out exploring space. We could have already colonized the moon. We could have already been on, no doubt, Mars, Venus. Some say we are already on Mars. I don't know. But I know this: of all the resources that go to make war, if that was diverted to quote unquote humanitarian, it always amazes me, these warmongers that start these conflicts, are so delusional that they really think that this is somehow humanitarian. You've got these people who, for some reason, are in a delusion, like Gates, Bezos, others. How about Mr. Zuckerberg? I mean, just to mention a few. They don't think that they're normal humans. They think they're above everybody else. But yet they placate into the destruction of humanity. What a waste of technology. Again, we could have diverted all of the trillions and trillions and who knows how many lives, and had devoted that to, instead of weapons of war, making it machines of peace. You think we could figure this out, but no. So anyway, that's my think about it tomorrow. And it is a Veterans Day here in the United States. And again, Veterans Day is probably the perfect day to think about world peace. If you're a veteran, you sacrificed some of your life energy, all of their life energy, into a conflict that in the end, sadly, has done no good. This is the saddest thing. So maybe we can turn this death march and turn it around and make it a life-giving adventure. So, hey, Chloe, much love to you, darling. Dave, hello. Mary Wins, good to see you. And hello. Kat, good to see you as well. It all boils down to greed of materialistic world. I ain't shouting you down, sister. You speaking the truth. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Rick, what's up? Thank you, sir, for your service. Appreciate it, my friend. Jargo, hello. Lucky, good to see you. Justified War is a marketing exhibit. Yeah, and sadly, the upper echelon They don't care who wins or who loses. They make money on both sides. And it's like going into Vegas and you can't lose. No matter how drastic the odds are, you can't lose. Lynn, good to see you. Hello. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Brandon, got your email. You're welcome, my friend. I got some injections in my hand, so it's difficult to type right now. So don't think I haven't ignored your email. I read them all. It's just that, at the moment, it's just, yeah. So this too shall pass. Good to see you, Gunn. Good to see you as well. Voiceover by Brown Butterfly. So good to see you. So, yeah. Sucks, doesn't it? So someone said in the comments section, what is the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead? Do they give any insights? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because there's two distinct philosophies on death. I mean, the commonality of it is death. But the Tibetan book is, for me, I guess I look at it and I use this as a reference book in studies. It appears to me, and this is just my take, there's a softness, a gentleness in how death is perceived from the Eastern point of view. And I find it to be very comforting. The prayers that are in here. This is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This one's interesting. I've done stories on this with videos, and there is spells that you can cast as he goes. Oh, how interesting. Under one of the prayers, I have marked the 7 principles, the 7 laws, which means if there's laws here, there obviously have to be laws in the ethereal. But this is a great book. I mean, if you can get this one, I think you can. I know it's gone way up in price, but in any case, this is beautifully illustrated with the hieroglyphs. And if you can read, the hieroglyphs, it tells their story. But again, one of the things I found with the Egyptian point of death is, and I guess, and it's true in the Tibetan book as well, is that there's a hierarchy. There's a structure. Death is really a door. It's a gate. It leads to realms of unimaginable wonder. And you have to realize then the day that you die, which is really the day of your birth, you're going to be entering into a realm that's been well established. Now, again, depending on how you see things, it could be a coming home party, could be, a new arrival. It's up for game. That's why we're studying this. Someone wrote and said, why would you spend time on such, a sad, morbid subject? And I wrote back, I said, you're perceiving it wrong. I said, no matter how you look at it, it is a subject that there's ignorance surrounding it. And then you get people, and I was like this, I was on the crap table, man, writing, the Boxcar Willies on this one because I thought I had the golden ticket. I didn't have to think about what it was going to be like. Someone else is doing that. That's what a slave does. Now, I happen to believe that if you believe that you are, in fact, unique, sentient, individual, then might be prudent to kind of get an idea maybe of what all those billions before you have done and gone to. Remember, ignorance is a self-inflicted disease easily cured by knowledge. R. Wayne Steiger, copyrighted. And so that's why I do it. Because no matter what, there's nothing to fear here. If anything, there's far more here to fear than over there. Someone said, well, aren't you afraid of the contrast of evil spirits and demons? And I said, listen, here, I've been at this a while. And here's my take on the angels, the demons, the gods, the Jesuses, the Muhammads, the yada, yada, yadas. They must be a regressed species. It's very evident that they do not evolve. They do not advance. At best, they seem to be stagnant in thought, because you have these roles that are always being repeated. I mean, really, you think about this. If you're a god, let's take it a step down. Let's say that you're an angel or a demon, probably related. That's your only thing. You're there to what? Scare people, take their souls, and that's all you do for eternity. I don't know about you, but that sounds like hell. That sounds like a prison. So that creature can never evolve? Because if they can evolve, then we would see evidence in this spear, would we not? I mean, if the demons that were created by us, the angels and the gods and everything else, you see, they never grow beyond the imagination of whoever invented them. They never advance. They never ascend. They stay stagnant, stale. Of course, that's just my personal opinion. You've got yours, and everything else is just depends on how you look at it. You got to love it. You draw some of these conclusions as you continue to look at this. I mean, I have no doubt that there is a realm over there. There's another great book. I have found this book. It has been a real jewel to me. I love, well, let me use the right, it's illuminating. It's called The Work of the Dead. Excellent book. Culture of History of Mortal Remains. I mean, no matter how you look at it, you're going to have mortal remains, which implies that remain is either the state of being held back, or again, a stasis, remain. So it's quite interesting. And as we'll get into our studies more and more, I'll be referencing this because, again, the one thing humans are really good at is death. It's the single most preoccupation of all of us. And yet it's the very thing everybody wants to avoid talking about. I mean, it's not like, you're at, let's say, a corporate event, where you've got the tables of 10. Been to those more times than I care to remember. I mean, it's not the thing that you're going to bring up to the other dinner guest. Mr. Steiger, what is it that you do? Well, I like to teach about death, because everyone here at the table is already dead. I mean, they're going to get up and go, whoa, Can I get another table? And that's how it works. Mary Wynn says she is making an omelet. Well, you got to make a couple for us because it sounds delicious. But it's true. So and you look at this, and then again, imagine this: you're doing this in cocktails, Social hours. When we were out on the venture capital circuit, I mean, man, there's more of these social mixers that you have to attend. I mean, your company's out seeking, capital. People don't invest in people they don't know. Anyway, I digress. It's so much better to be here with y'all. That's all I can say. Nina says, cremation or burial. Nina, I did a whole video on that, and I'm going the way of my ancestors. Cremated. No need for my physical body to be here in a state of decay. I think that's more, I don't know, for me, it bothers me to think that my body, who I love, who has been a faithful companion, that I would put my body through that process. That's just me. I think fire has a cleansing effect, and but that's just me too. So that's it. That's how I look at it. And it runs in my family. We prefer cremation than to have the thought. And Vincent Price did it best in some of his movies, where his wife that had cheated on him, where, she was buried alive. It's that thing like, oh, crap, no way. So one thing about it, if you're cremated, there ain't going to be no question about that. Could you see the jar going? Brum, brum, brum. Maybe that's possible. All righty. So it's interesting. I'm reading some of the comments. I think it's Oregon, and maybe it's Washington as well, is that now you can bury your loved ones on your property. It's environmentally good. Again, it's just that thought, man. It's like, oh, man. You got, hey, Linda Espinola, how are you, darling? Good to see you as well. Paul Joe, hello, S. Lee. So, yeah, just your take. As it was pointed out to me a while back, everything we eat is dead. We're eating the dead. Whether you're a vegetarian, whether you're a carnivore, where maybe you swing both ways, variety is the spice of life. But, no matter what you put in your mouth is dead. We eat death. We consume the dead bodies of those who lived here before. Don't tell me this ain't the fucking death realm. I'll look at you and go, seriously? Have you thought about that? Everything you eat. Now, here's the amazing thing. Talk about rebirth, because there's actually a rebirth that takes place. You consume this dead material, right? And somehow or another, we generate energy out of it. Now, that doesn't tell you that we're spiritual beings. I don't know if a soul can do that. I don't know, but I would probably lean more in the favor that a spirit could do that. Wouldn't have a problem with that at all. Think about how many psychic vampires, manipulators that you've known in your lifetime that had the ability to manipulate people, and they feed off of that. That's what I'm talking about. So I guess in essence, we are, in fact, the living dead, are we not? Are there really bad ways to die or good ways to die? Well, I guess it kind of depends on how you look at it. I mean, what's a bad way? Murder, blunt force trauma? I don't know. They say that those who encounter such ways out, they typically have a little bit more to deal with. I did a video 6-7 years ago about over in Africa where the guy was hit, and I mean, when the car hit him, it's back in the archives. And, you know, I know at one time YouTube had all the videos I had, but they don't anymore. But anyway, with that one particularly was interesting because the CCR camera that was up there for the road, you know, caught the guy when he was dead and then showed an apparition getting up. He went over to the cops. You could see he's talking to the cops. They couldn't hear or see him. I don't know. I mean, and then that doorway opened up. I mean, it was very clear something opened up and he stepped right through it and there he was gone. So I don't know. Shirley, what's up? Good to see you. You're working. Well, thank you for listening, dear. So anyway, Lori, what's up? So that's just it. They say, you know, I've told this, you know, when I was 15 and I put my hand through a window and I had to say I was rather stoned on LSD, but that's beside the point. But my point is that you can feel death coming as you start losing enough blood. Things begin to slow down a little bit. They're actually very speeding up, but my perception was, and so, I mean, that's a form of death, near-death experience. We're going to get into that. And then again, you could be like my grandmother. Said she was going to take a nap, and she was going to go on. And she did. She took her nap and released her spirit. So there you go. Is that right, Deborah? Okay. Wow. Anyway, someone says, love the honesty. That's fresh. Well, welcome. So I love the subject. I mean, it's isn't that what the paranormal is about? If you think about it, that's what really religion is about. You go amongst others that we all are like on board the bus and you ain't getting off the bus. Here you can get off the bus, but on that one, and you project out. And I never could understand in my former religion with Christianity how they talk about this sweet place and that, you know, we'll all be united, you know, once again. But yet when the funeral happens, all of them are crying and wailing and just a carrying on. And, you know, I look at it back now and I'm going, well, what? Wait a minute. I thought this heaven place was a happy place. Why are you? And you tell us that, you know, we're going to be reunited. So why is everybody crying? Well, we're going to miss them. Really? I mean, it's part of the experience. Anyway, I digress on that. Loretta says that bus has sailed. Yeah, come on over on Wayne's party bus. I mean, I got plenty of room. Got lounge chairs, you know, bean bags. You know, it's pretty far out back there. Process plastic Wayne on the dashboard. I wouldn't even know what that would look like, but holy crap. Okay. That's fresh. I'm reading that flipped your world upside down. Since then, I've been trying to understand with heavy research. I would relish an opportunity to have your thoughts on it. Emailing. Yeah. Get you on the show if you want. Okay, so Aaron says I'd buy Wayne's bobblehead. Oh man, it could freak some people out, man. You know, they'd be doing this number, man. It's like, crazy. Cheers. Today, drinking heavily clove tea with unfiltered raw honey. It's delicious. I've learned to live with it, but it's opened up. Okay, well, let me know. Absolutely. So, all right. Chloe says it's an arc spark. That rhymes, Chloe. The arc spark. I like that. That's what us, we do, right? All right, so let's get into where we left off yesterday. I thought that to bring in a little, because we are at death's transition, we're reading the postmodern consciousness of the Devachan, the kingdom of God. Now, again, this is, you can, in the baking of this, we can taste a little bit of, the cinnamon in there that they put in here. But no doubt, it's all about on the subject of near-death experiences. It's one of those things that I've experienced. I'm sure many of you have as well. And from the 5 different times that I can distinctly remember, not once was I ever afraid. But here's my observation. There is a channel on YouTube. There's a number of them, actually, that deal with near-death experiences. And I enjoy listening to what people are encountering and hear what they're perceiving. And this is just me, but it's my assessment that I have not found any 2 stories that are exactly the same. I haven't found any 2 stories that really would be almost in the same circumstance. It seems that it's heavily based upon what your psychic consciousness, your subconscious, your overall perceives to be. Maybe it's your superconscious. It's consciousness, no doubt. And that's the other thing. For me personally, I'd love to hear from y'all as well. Just put it in the comments. I wasn't surrounded by others. It was just me. It was, as the best way I could describe it now would be almost like this cocoon. Because I don't remember anyone else there. The one particularly when I was went into anaphylactic shock with the African bees that stung me, and was in the emergency room. There was nobody else there. It was just me. So it's again. Now, fortunately, the good doc that was there, gotta say about veterans, he had just returned from his tour in Iraq. He was a cardiologist who just happened to be on call when they brought me into the emergency room. And I distinctly heard him say, he just literally screamed it. He said, "You son of a bitch, you're not dying here today. Not on my watch." I didn't either. Yeah. But anyway, so again, to all you veterans, thank you. So let's get into this paper. It's a short one. And tell us about your experience. I'd love to have a group of people come in and talk about if you've had a near-death experience. Did you meet anyone? Were you alone? Some of these stories are quite interesting. Again, I'm rather envious in some of them. I'm going, well, what? So, all right, in this essay, the author says, I will argue that the near-death experience does exist, and I will cite evidence in support of this thesis. I will also examine some of the reasons why the existence and nature of the NDE is controversial. I will argue that the NDE cannot be fully understood just within the theoretical framework of the scientific biomedical paradigm. but that a much wider paradigm that includes the transcendent, psychological, and spiritual is needed. I will draw on the work of a number of commentators and will make some connections between some of them. Various people have reported experiencing a phenomenon that has come to be known as an NDE, where they have apparently died and been revived, and had conscious recall of what they perceived to have been a form of conscious experience of events that would be termed an afterlife. Many of the testimonies of this have common elements, even when people involved did not know each other and had no way to have any knowledge of the other person's testimony. Von Lumel summarizes that common elements of the NDE, which he documents as having 12 stages, starting with a feeling of total peace, along with an out-of-body experience, continuing on to a perception of hurtling along a tunnel or similar, perceiving an unearthly environment, meeting with a being of light, and undergoing a panoramic life review. Blackmore has a similar summary. The NDE always ends with a return to the body, with some people reporting being given a choice after the life review of whether they would return to life on earth or not. I can't remember a life review, so maybe I wasn't as dead as I thought, huh? Several commentators have suggested that this kind of experience is not just confined to recent times, but has been happening for a very long time. Zelinsky in 1980 discusses at some length the similarities and differences between what he calls the medieval occurrence of NDE and the modern. Van Lommel, citing Ritchie, points out that the remarkable similarities to one modem NDE with the description of hell in Dante's The Divine Comedy. And that's a point right there. I mean, listen, before Dante, there was no description of hell. I mean, the guy, and as we've covered it here, but as we discovered, it was really a Romeo and Juliet love story. Not anymore. Faust. Pen Van Lommel is a cardiologist who, in 1969, as a young junior doctor, witnessed an NDE. He initially wrote off the patient's description of what he had seen, as do many medical personnel, because his training had taught him that such a thing was impossible. In 1986, as an experienced cardiologist, von Lommel read the book Return from Tomorrow by George Ritchie and Shrill, 2007, who described his own NDE in 1943. As a result of these two events, von Lommel began a project of questioning cardiac arrest survivors. Out of just over 50 such people, 12 had conscious recall of otherworldly experiences from when they were clinically dead. Now, in my past, I have known a cardiologist and who was, in fact, in his early days in his internship, worked the ER, trauma. I recall he told a story of an individual that was in a motorcycle accident and apparently was really messed up. Apparently, one leg looked like it had gone through a cheese grinder. But I remember him saying that they had lost him, lost the heartbeat. Resuscitated the heart. And the very first thing that he said, now this was a young person in his 20s, he literally screamed, "Oh, fucking God, don't let me go back there, please." And he is screaming at the nurses, the doctor that was there. traumatized. And it stuck with all of them as this doctor was recalling the story. And they've had similar, but never, he said, this one was so intense. This guy, wherever he was in his worst nightmare. Now, people could add saying, well, look at the, way that he had died and was brought back. I could agree with that, but still, his experience was not unicorns and fluffy white clouds with real angel babies playing harps. Apparently not. While different people respond differently, in the aftermath of having experienced an NDE, there is a common pattern. Von Lommel, drawing on his own research, documents changes that many NDE survivors have experienced, including losing a fear of death, having a more spiritual and less materialistic outlook on life, having a more positive outlook on life, and generally being more empathetic, loving, and compassionate person. The actual details of what a person sees and experiences in their NDE appears to be at least partly influenced by their own cultural and religious background. For example, a person with Christian's belief is more likely to put a Christian slant on their experience. When I read the book Endorpha, which is, it was talking about the fact that when we go through this phase of death, that these soul workers, it can be very difficult because some people are so indoctrinated that that is the only thing that they have been waiting for. And it's very difficult. It takes a while to get those spirits, souls, ready to understand that it's not going to be that way. Interesting. He said, I would also suggest that a person's cultural belief heavily influences their afterlife beliefs. For example, Bronislaw Malinowski reported that the Tribrennial Icelanders believed that the spirits of the dead go to the top of Mount Biopso on Normanby Island. In his ethnogenic study of a band of Indians in British Columbia, Hugh Body found that their elaborate hand-drawn hunting maps, considered to be sacred by the Indians, also function as a map for guiding the departing soul of the map's owner to their destination happy hunting grounds. That's just far out. I mean, think about it. Your elders, your community, the shaman, the priest, the priestess, they have this down as your culture. And if that is your entire culture for your entire time here, well, I would say that is a responsible group. I could dig this group. I love it. Whether it's true or not, it's true for them. And I have no doubt that that's where they are. In his book, Eye to Eye, the transpersonal psychologist Ken Wilber, drawing on a number of spiritual traditions from both East and West, postulates that there are basically three levels or categories of human consciousness. He cites the religious philosopher Saint Bonaventure as calling these the three eyes of the soul. There is the eye of flesh, Weber's italics, which perceive the physical world. There is the eye of reason, with which humans attain a knowledge of logic, philosophy, and of the mind itself. And there is the eye of contemplation, by which we rise to a knowledge of transcendent realities. Oh, that's as far out. I mean, I love that. The eye of contemplation. How about that, Robert? Isn't that something? I like that idea. The eye of contemplation, by which we rise to the knowledge of transcendent realities. Oh, yeah, baby. Wilbur also argues that it is ignorance of the existence of these three categories and of the differences between them that leads to much of the misunderstanding and errors that are made when methodologies of the three categories are inappropriately used. Any attempt to work with the tools of an inappropriated category of consciousness results in a category error. An example of a category error would be any attempt to prove or disprove the existence of God by using the tools of the two lower levels of consciousness, which would be futile and only lead to frustration and nonsense. I think we can all establish there is something. I don't know if it's an architect. I don't know if it's the ultimate consciousness. For myself, I have difficulty now accepting most religions' gods because, quite frankly, all I see those as is mere proxies for a human being. They certainly have human traits. So anyway, again, why would God want worshipers? I mean, I've come to the point that this God, whoever it may be, if it was truly God, would desire its creation to experience all of creation. It's just me. We continue. It seems obvious to me that the NDE is a class of phenomena that belongs in Wilber's eye of contemplation form of consciousness. Therefore, it also seems obvious that any attempt to make sense of the NDE purely in terms of the laws of physical science is, by definition, a category error and will only be problematic. I'm not saying that studies like the ones undertaken by von Lemmel and others are futile. However, any attempt to make full sense of those kinds of studies that omits consideration of the transcendent as Wilber's eye of contemplation will, by definition, be incomplete. I think that's the problem with our science today. Science and religion are fighting one another, in which they're basically fighting against themselves. Now, if you bring in a good occultist, a good witch, wizard, warlock, however you want to describe that, this is where science will eventually catch on. Yeah. We know here in the United States, England, I guess all of them, employ occultists, men and women who are masters at their gifts, their giftings. One of the biggest agencies that I know personally about is the Federal Reserve. Yeah. All right, we continue. Just like a fish, being always immersed in water, considers being in water normal and cannot imagine any other state. So also people who are immersed in the rational and limited consciousness that we think of as normal, Weber's eye of the flesh, consider any other form of consciousness to be not normal. Well, I love this. What is normal? Normal is what everybody else is, and you're not. I love it. I would argue that it's because we have been intensively indoctrinated to think this. Well, right arm on that one. By virtue of our membership of the Rational Reductionist Society. I love that. I would also argue that, in fact, our rational form of consciousness is actually the real abnormal, in that we are blocking ourselves off from a large percentage of the totality of a much wider, deeper reality. The cultural historian Morris Berman's designation of late 20th century consciousness as being the dullard form of consciousness sums this up in one word, in my opinion: a dullard. All right, folks, Soul Tribe, we got to remember that word, a dullard. That being the case, I would also argue that NDEs, along with other similar kinds of transcendental and mystical experiences, are actually a window into a much wider, deeper, might be a better term, form of consciousness that should be our human birthright, but which has been stifled by our social, cultural conditioning. Oh man, this guy, these are truth bombs. Boom, man. Boom, bam. Good paper. Zalaski attempts to get to grips with this when he says, there is no sensory, imaginative, or intellectual form capable of fully expressing the transcendent. It always reminds me of Jodie Foster in Contact, when she finally broke through and realizing that she was in another plane, another galaxy, another universe, but really she had never left at all. But it's just that, as she said, if we're going to explore the stars, we need to send the poets, the musicians. They can express what science coldly tries to calculate. Love it. He offers a theory that there are two classes of consciousness, but he becomes somewhat muddled when he attempts to tie this into religious theology. Yeah, like quicksand. And to a theory that the transcendent can only be understood symbolically. Bullshit. Excuse me. That was my comment. I would argue that while symbolism is an important factor in understanding the NDE and other transcendent experiences, it is only part of the equation. And the NDE also needs to be accepted at face value for what it appears to be. An out-of-body experience, near-death experience, and also examined in terms of Weber's eye of contemplation. I love this. Further, to that, the NDE and associated phenomena have been examined and their results published by various workers using techniques that could be described as belonging to the eye of contemplation. One such, by Neil Donald Walsh, is documented in his book, Home with God, 2006. Walsh gives an extremely detailed account of the NDE and also the wider subject of life of the soul while in the disincarnated state. As Walsh's methodology involves channeled information, many people will be likely to view his work with suspicion or derision. I would argue that such skeptics are falling victim to their own limited, culturally conditioned worldview. The same worldview that involves a dogmatic belief in the scientific worldview as being the only valid worldview. That also is likely to make them skeptical in regard to an NDE in general. Well, sure, you're completely biased. As I have argued above, the scientific methodologies of the eye of the flesh are inappropriate tools for fully explaining an NDE. That being the case, we are left with techniques that include channeling and other transcendent techniques if we wish to examine transcendent phenomenon with a genuine credibility. The spiritual teacher Barry Long argued that humanity has realized a small fraction of its potentiality. We are evolving towards achieving what he calls cosmic consciousness, but are presently only realizing human consciousness, at least while we are confined within our bodies. However, when we go inside into our inner reality from where we came, it's a much different matter. Freed from the limitations that the brain places on the mind, human consciousness is able to experience the full width, the depth of which is inherently capable, but rarely achieves. Another way of looking at this is that the NDE acts as a catalyst for the mind to access Wilber's higher levels of consciousness. Berman has suggested that humanity has undergone a number of consciousness shifts beginning with a very major shift in consciousness when humans settled down in one location and became farmers rather than hunter-gatherers. He argues that this major shift in consciousness involved a shift from what he calls a horizontal form of consciousness into a narrower vertical form. The HD people, in the experiencing of their horizontal consciousness, experience themselves as being an integral part to nature and of nature. They did not experience any separation between themselves and the landscape, or the animals and plants with which they shared the landscape with. Many of the NDE informants report having experienced a similar feeling of being connected to everyone and everything during their NDE, and of having a complete knowing and understanding. I would suggest that this is because during the NDE, their civilized and highly conditioned brain is somehow switched off, allowing a fuller kind of consciousness to take over. The NDE experience is, in a sense, a reversion back to the kind of consciousness that HD forebears took for granted. I would argue that in their original wild state, before the commencement of their long trek into what we call civilization, humans were naturally and effortlessly experiencing all three of Wilber's forms of consciousness, albeit without the benefits of modern knowledge of the world and of science. I'm just going to stop there. It's so interesting because for me, as I'm reading this, it appears to validate that there's this regression, that wherever we descended from, our ancestors, they understood spirituality. They understood the ethereal. It was, I believe, integrated into their part of consciousness. They didn't have to question God. They didn't have to question what is. It was just naturally a part of their thinking. It sounds almost like, like you kind of would like to go back to that. Yeah, I would say that they were very advanced. They may not have had the technology, but then again, we don't know. They possibly made no distinction between them. To them, everything was just the way it was. They used their three eyes without distinction. Brody's Indians experience a similar kind of worldview, where physical reality merges with psychological dream type reality, and very little distinction is made between them. Their hunting maps fill two roles. One, on a level they conventionally two-dimensional sketches of the physical landscape. But on another level, the level of Wilber's eye of contemplation, they are soul maps for the guidance of the map makers into the afterlife. Not having been indoctrinated by the consciousness of Western civilization, the Indians have retained a consciousness that retains some similarities with the horizontal consciousness of the HG forebears. The novelist Daniel Quinn narrated a similar scenario in his novel, The Story of B. A charismatic spiritual teacher, known to his disciples as B, argues a case for our hunter-gatherer ancestors being not just closer to nature than us, but they were nature. They were part of the general community of life. They fully belonged to, experienced themselves as being an integral part of that community of life. They did not consider themselves to be separate from nature, and this was not just an abstract belief. It was an experiment. It was an experimental reality for them. Such a people had no need for a concept of what we call the environment. As Long also pointed out, the environment is a cultural construct, only needed by people who experience themselves as being separate and separated from nature. The Australian scholar David Tacey argues a similar thesis regarding the Australian or Aboriginal people. In his book, Edge of the Sacred, 1995, Tacey compares the contrast of the Aboriginal consciousness with that of Euro-Australians. To the Aborigine, there is no separation between himself and the landscape. He therefore is not afraid to enter into the depths of his own psyche, nor is he afraid of traveling deep into the heart of the physical continent of Australia, as he experiences the landscape as an aspect of himself. This, according to Tacey, can be seen as the metaphor for a willingness to plunge deep into the depths of one's own hidden psyche. By way of contrast, Euro-Australians cling physically to the edge of the continent. All their large cities are on or close to the edge, and this also works as a metaphor for their reluctance to go deep into their own psyche. I would argue that this reluctance of Euro-Australia to go deep in both senses is at least partly because of their conditioning as members of the sub-social cultural group that almost exclusively lives in Weber's eye of flesh consciousness. I would also argue that the New Zealanders are no different in this. To such people, experiences like an NDE is foreign territory, to be either denied or feared, as it often is. I would also argue that, to the Aborigine, the experience of an NDE would be considered to be routine, of the same class of experience as the dream time. The same would apply regarding Brodie's Indians. An NDE would be accepted as totally real, a visit to the same familiar territory that they documented in their hunting maps. I would go on, citing more examples of non-Western peoples who have had a similar tradition of traveling deep into their non-traditional consciousness, and to whom the experience of NDE would be accepted as routine. The priesthood of ancient Egypt comes to mind as one such example, and also some of the meditative practices of Buddhism. However, we have traversed enough ground in regard to this, and I will finish this survey of such peoples by pointing out that of all the cultures of the world, our culture is the odd one. Our culture, Western culture, is out of sync with everybody else, in that we insist on living solely, if we can, in our eye of flesh consciousness, and pretending that this is the only valid form of consciousness. I would also answer that some of the consequences of this are catastrophic. Though that is an issue beyond the scope of this discussion, little wonder that we also find an experience like an NDE hard to accept. So we'll wrap it up there. We're almost done with this. In fact, we are. In fact, I'll go ahead and finish it out. In this discussion of the NDE, by presenting evidence from a diverse range of sources, including from theorists and commentators from the rational scientific world, for example, von Lommel, the world of social sciences and mainstream academia, Berman, Tacey, Brodie, Quinn, and from the more transcendent Long, Walsh, I have presented a synthesis that attempts to theorize the NDE in a new way. In order to do this, I have relied upon the work of Weber and his three eyes to provide the glue to tie these diverse sources together and to facilitate my synthesis. Summing up my answer to the question posed by the title of this essay, I would say that NDEs are real. They have been experienced by many people, and they are evidential of a wider and deeper form of reality than that which is confined to our everyday worldly eye of flesh. I also argue that wider reality was the norm for our hunter-gatherers forebears, and that the NDE can give us a glimpse into the wider reality, if only we accept it as being real and worthy of serious consideration. It's only real if you believe it is, right? Good paper. I love it. Like how he expressed it. I'm going to have to say the eye of contemplation. Yeah. So there we go. Pretty good lesson. I love these lessons. I mean, yeah, we'll pick this up back on Monday, but and it just validates us. You know, it's one of the things I can say that I've enjoyed about the occult is that it's given me a wider and a deeper reality check, that I can actually begin to see beyond the borders that were so well constructed by me. Maybe because as a child, I was always, a rebel. I guess maybe what I always have been. I don't know. But yeah. Nina says live on her channel tomorrow. I'm just looking in here for the first time. On Sunday, Horns of the Goddess. Oh, over there on Nina's channel. So check that out. It's fascinating. Again, if you've had one, let me know. And to finish out on the occult, what the cult really does is bring out hidden knowledge. And when you stop fearing it, its treasure just opens up. You can take in as much as your mind will allow you to. There's no limit. Well, that's far out. Hey, Lost in Space. Love and favor brought back to all of you. So tomorrow, remember, Day of World Peace, Unity, Podcast Day. If you're doing one, give a shout out. Chloe, you're welcome. So Paul Joe says, dang rebels without a cause or not. Hey, Lady Spitfire, how are you doing? Rebel without a cause, even, listen, I don't think we need one. If it did, we just, invent something else. Brian, right back at you, brother. You have a great weekend too. So, the Tharker Arc Spark, I like that. Mark the Arc Spark. That's cool. That's a cool handle. I love that. Onion, right back at you. All right. So much love, everybody. Next week, we're going to continue on this. I mean, it's a fascinating subject. When we get done with it, as I told you when we started this, you're going to be like the freaking person that goes into the middle of a large crowd that you just start talking, and the next thing there's this hush, and they're going to be listening to you. And there's going to be those that you'll come in contact with after you've learned all this that you're going to be able to give comfort and at least some guidance to. Yeah. Way to go, all of you. High five across the board. All right, Stephen Parks, take care. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. So, all right. Until we meet again, evolution, not revolution. Zuvaya, is that right? I think I got that right. Yeah, absolutely. DC, right back at you, brother. All right, everybody. Much love and peace, calmness. Yeah. What is the proverb says? Be quiet, O my soul, and know the serenity of God. Yeah, that's cool. It still works. That's a meditative thing. All right. Much love, everyone. Until we see y'all again.